Before we begin, thank you very much to Karen for joining the Patreon campaign. I don't have a manager you can speak to. It's spelled without an E. It's spelled with two A's. So I'm actually interested. Like maybe this. I don't think it's a bad Karen. They signed up to the Patreon, so they are not a bad Karen. They're a very good Karen. I thank them very much for supporting the channel because it helps keep the content coming and the channel living. It's nice to have a living YouTube channel. I'd much like to keep it. So thank you very much to everyone for the Patreon support. It is time, once again, we are going to talk Earthspark episodes, and this is 39 and 40. Season 2, I will admit, has been interesting so far, and I still call it Season 2 because, frankly, that's what this was supposed to be until they kind of skirted things a little bit. But technically, yes, we are talking about Season 3, which makes this episode The Great Escape, starting with these puzzle boxes, which thankfully do not have a lamentation configuration. They're just little puzzle boxes with invites inside. We can already get an idea of how this episode is going to go because Twitch has to do everybody's puzzle box for them. No one else can figure it out. I find that weird that Nightshade cannot figure out theirs given how smart they are, but you know, sometimes that's just how it goes. Point being, inside all of them are invites to what seems to be some kind of ad hoc circus, with this little ticket taker at the front, which is guarded by a riddle. You have to solve it in order to get your entry tickets. Entry tickets which just happen to be little golden tickets that specifically call themselves golden tickets, and just like the ones from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, there's a lot of fine print on the back that nobody bothers to read. Pay attention, boys and girls, this will come up on the test. The test, however, being provided by one Maestro. Yes, the Transformers equivalent of, let's say, the Riddler, if you are for a DC Comics fan, or Arcade, if you are a Marvel Comics fan. More a mix of the two, if we are being serious. Point being, he has this whole weird little circus he has set up specifically for the Terrans and the Maltos. And it's simple. You have a series of challenges, get through all the challenges, you're free to leave. Otherwise, you're going to have to replace the attraction he lost at his carnival. Attraction being, you know, freeing the Autobot he had enslaved. You know, semantics, I guess. I like the character of Maestro. I like any kind of, like, quirky, gimmicky villain like this that can pose a threat to actual Transformer characters. And he does so just by being, you know, kind of slimy and kind of smart at the same time. You know, he runs a carnival. Kind of how it goes sometimes. The tests are very much carnival themed. We have a DDR machine that turns into try to step on all the spaces across the entirety of the room, including up the walls. This is the one for the Malto kids themselves, who of course ace the DDR machine, but they still need Twitch's help to hit all of the panels across the rest of the room. And that's kind of the theme that we're going with here. As we go along, they are unlocking keys. Every challenge they successfully complete unlocks a key, and the ones who completed the challenges vanish from the room. Presumably, once you finish your challenge, you manage to escape, and it's up to everybody else to make it all the rest of the way through. Twitch is being the character she's been developed to be, and I have loved the character development of Twitch, because she has been written as the leader of the Terrans, but we saw her in the first season just not understanding family yet, not understanding, just much of anything. She was a newborn in season 1. So to see her grow to the point where she has what I could genuinely call wisdom to her is pretty cool. I actually really like to see it. And this scene in particular. So Jawbreaker has to do the old Carnival hammer game, but the harder he hits it, the longer the back of it gets, meaning the bell gets farther and farther away. The harder he hits it, the higher up the bell gets. He's only got 3 hits, and it takes Twitch to calm him down. The thing about the test is it's a test of strength, but there are other ways of showing strength. And one of the things that Twitch says is it takes strength to be gentle. A paraphrase of the statement that Peter Cullen's brother made to him when he was going for the voice role of Optimus Prime. You know, he was ex-military and stated, you know, if you're going to be a hero, don't be a fake Hollywood hero. You know, if you're going to be a real hero, you know, be strong enough to be gentle. I love that quote that basically gave birth to Optimus Prime, the portrayal we know him as. That's what gave, like, that's hearing that in a Transformers show is amazing to me. I loved that. I geeked out when I heard that reference. It's so good. The rest of the games go pretty much as you expect. Every single one is facing a challenge that's a little bit beyond them, but with a little bit of coaching from Twitch, they get through. And Twitch is the final one to complete the challenge and finds herself in front of a door with 7 locks that all have to be turned at the same time, 1 for every key. Unfortunately, with her family not present, she can't use the locks. And then we find out what happens when you don't complete the games properly. See, the fine print said everyone has to complete their task on their own, but everyone needed Twitch's help. Meaning they ended up replacing the Cosmos ride that Fair Maestro had before. This is really creepy in a weird way. Not gonna lie. Like even the kids are kind of like stuck in their own little pod as part of this. Yeah, it's kind of disturbing to see the characters just kind of reduced to just rides spinning around. It's a twisted setup. It's a really twisted setup. He apparently is using some leftover Mandroid tech too, because like they've got like the locking bolts stuck to them. And it's what he uses to try and get Twitch as well, but she's a little bit too nimble for that. The fight eventually leads to a giant robot version of the Ticket Taker, as everybody else is now managing to escape the trap to begin with, and formulating a way of escaping. As it turns out, the fine print on the ticket mentions, if the ticket's destroyed, it's null and void. Meaning the only thing they really have to do in order to win is get the ticket, which is why Twitch is inside the Ticket Taker, and destroy them. It takes some doing. But naturally, you know, this is when family pulls together, teamwork, etc. They come through for Twitch. Twitch manages to get the tickets, chop them up. They're free to go. Simple as that. We're left on a weird note at the end where, like, Fair Maestro is challenged to complete his own obstacle course, and then it's indicated that it's not going well for him. We don't get a follow-up on that. It's just kind of weird that, like, the solution to this wasn't just, like, punching him out. It's still just kind of playing along with him. The episode itself is fun. It obviously does nothing for the overall plot other than to reinforce Twitch's position as a leader amongst the Terrans. But for the most part, yeah, it's a very enjoyable episode. I really like the Fair Maestro character. I like the challenges, and yeah, I really like seeing Twitch come into her own as a leader amongst her kind. It's a fun little episode, even if it's mostly filler, but you know, I enjoy it for what it is. That leads us into the second episode of the season, episode 40 overall, which is No Soldier Left Behind. This starts with a crashed Autobot shuttle. We haven't had a new arrival this season. This gives us some potential. So, I do like the fact that it's very much based on the Ark. You know, it has that kind of traditional Autobot shuttle shape to it. That's kind of a cool nod. You notice, like, the people writing and working on these shows obviously either do a lot of research or are very big fans themselves. To include things like the Peter Cullen line, little nods like this, that means a lot. But there are two parts to this episode. The previous episode's very linear. This one has two different things going on at the same time. We're just kind of go in order with this episode. There is tension between Optimus and Megatron, because of course there is. So, ever since this show began, really, they've been kind of teasing this idea that, like, Optimus and Megatron don't completely see eye to eye. There's still something adversarial there. And every now and then they show that the tensions are flaring up, and this is one of those episodes. And the events of the episode are going to play a big part of that. They both have different ideals about what is the priority when it comes to handling this crashed Autobot ship. It is, by the way, in Decepticon territory inside the dome, making this a little bit more difficult. Also means the kids have to come along, which that makes things a little bit more tense too. We'll get to that later on as well. The ship itself, if you were worried about the Decepticons, seems to be pretty good at defending itself. It has automatic defenses that are designed to target Decepticons. Specifically Decepticons. It does not target the Terrans. It does target Megatron, which means it's up to Optimus and the Terrans to actually go into the ship and actually find out what's going on. And inside, you saw the thumbnail. This isn't a mystery. Prowl has entered the series. Now, first off, I do like the design that they're going with here. It is very familiar, but knowing that Prowl has not scanned any Earth mode yet, yeah, his design is still very alien. No discernible, like, normal, like, standard headlights or anything like that. I'll tell you right now, the vehicle mode's a hover car. Like, he doesn't, like, you can see wheels behind his shoulders, but his vehicle mode does not have wheels. It's a cool design. You know, it's very much like any of the other Earthspark styles. I mean, it very much hits that that sleeker, more evergreen note that they've been going with for the last few years. But, you know, it still resembles and looks like Prowl. I'm happy with it. He is depicted as something of Optimus Prime's best friend in this series, but he carries a gruffness to him. Like, he almost feels like a very mild version of IDW Prowl, where he's very no-nonsense. Like, even more no-nonsense than Grimlock is in this series. He'll make for an interesting dynamic, as most of the other Autobots in this show are kind of happy-go-lucky, as it were. You know, Elita's serious, but she can be nice and kind of friendly when she wants to. RC is a trip. Wheeljack is a trip. So this is kind of like the most serious Autobot we've had on hand, and of course it's Prowl. The question is brought, why doesn't he just leave the ship and come with them? Why is he still in here? Because he has this. This is a Spark Regeneration Key. Literally capable of restoring someone's extinguished spark. Because he's been on the lookout for Optimus. That's what he's been flying around for. Still doesn't know the fate of Cybertron, which is kind of a big deal, especially for Shockwave. But he's brought this just in case he came across, a dead Optimus Prime or something. But it's why he can't leave. It's an extremely powerful item. He cannot let it fall into Decepticon hands. So the option is to try and get the ship back up off the ground. One problem with that, that tension's boiling over a lot. Try to explain to Prowl, who is depicted as a very stern Autobot here, that Megatron is a friend now. This is like the Autobot Megatron problem, is like coming across people who don't realize what's going on and go, you can't be serious. Really? No, absolutely not. So now Prowl and Megatron are at odds, but at the same time, Megatron's the one that's best suited for the plan here. The plan is to actually fly over to Terratronus, where the Chaos Lightning is going off, and using that with with the Terrans using their powers to create essentially a giant jumper cable to repower the shuttle and get it out of the dome. So we get the tension of Megatron flying through the storm. That doesn't go well. They have to go on their like combined ship mode at one point, but they are still just like making their way to the top of Terratronus so they can get struck by lightning. Like you do. We've seen Back to the Future. This is how this goes. In the meantime, Prowl and Optimus are actually having a pretty good fight scene with the Decepticons fending them off. I mean, it's 2 versus like 10, but it's going fairly well, mostly. There are some really good spots in this. Optimus at one time does ramp off one of the Insecticons in vehicle mode. It's very Hot Rod from the 86 movie. Cool little touch there. It does eventually get overwhelming, and by the time the lightning hits the cable, they have lost the edge. They have lost control of the ship, and it is going to be in Decepticon hands. This puts us to an interesting position. Optimus manages to grab onto the back of the ship, and he's dangling from the rear hatch. Megatron has flown up to meet him and try and reclaim the ship, but Shockwave intercepts and gives Megatron one more chance to come back to the Decepticons. Keep in mind, they kind of tease this, that can you really trust this Megatron? Is he really on the level, or is he playing a long game, or is he, can he be tempted back to being like a full-fledged Decepticon? To his credit, he still chooses Optimus and actually takes a dive to catch Optimus when he falls from the ship, prioritizing the well-being of the Autobot leader above just keeping control of the shuttle. That does mean the Decepticons manage to escape, and this is the last time we're going to see them in this season. Spoiler alert, but it's a plot hook for whatever season comes next. Season 2 Part 3, Season 3 Part 2, or Season 4. I don't know what the final 8 episodes are going to be called, but this is the setup. The Decepticons actually got away, and if Cybertron still exists, Shockwave is currently flying there. Now, the good news here is that because she thinks ahead, most snag the key. Because apparently it didn't occur to any of the Autobots in the room to just, take the key and just get out of the ship with it. Like the Decepticons were unaware that a relic like that was on board. So just I don't know, stuff it in a pocket and run. They were more interested in the ship anyway to leave the planet. It's bad for them to get back to Cybertron because they can come back with reinforcements, but technically this makes Earth safer because all the Decepticons are gone. Except for Tarantulas, who still hasn't shown up, and I'm so annoyed at that. But good on you, Mo. Good for being a pickpocket when you needed to. That said, Prime doesn't like the fact that his orders were ignored. Megatron's orders were to watch the kids and to make sure the shuttle didn't leave, not to rescue him. He's upset that he prioritized, that Megatron prioritized Optimus over saving the shuttle. But Megatron's argument is, we take care of ourselves, we take care of each other first. Protecting each other is more important than the mission. That's the Autobot way. Megatron is preaching the Autobot way to Optimus Prime. And to be honest, he ain't wrong. So the tension remains really high between these two, and we're not going to revisit that for a little bit longer because that's where the episode ends. And it is a good episode, and this is where we do get plot progression for the first time this season. The Decepticons are on their way back to Cybertron. Optimus and Megatron's tensions have raised up again, and you're kind of left with like a what happens next kind of vibe. Because as far as we know, all the villain threats are now off-world. What do you do with a Transformer show with no Decepticons? They've got something. They've got something in mind. But for now, that has been episode 39 and 40, or season 3, episode 3 and 4. I think both are good episodes, where one is just kind of like a fun establishment episode for Twitch, and the other one is very plot-centric and keeps the dynamic between Optimus and Megatron very interesting. So, that's where we're going to leave it off. I'm still enjoying this show, and so far, Season 3 has proved to be at least a little bit more interesting than Season 2. But we still have a few episodes left to go before we make a final verdict on that. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.